Well, public transit systems are in jeopardy across the country.
Yeah, there are concerns that looming cuts in service could hurt the economy's recovery. Scripps reporter Chris Conte takes us inside what's happening.
They come and go with less frequency now.
Face coverings are required.
Empty trains across the country, public transit in peril, as the pandemic has kept people away from traveling in large crowds.
Transit is definitely in trouble.
That's Jared Johnson. He oversees the group Transit Matters. It's not the empty trains and buses that bother him so much as the proposed cuts on the horizon as ridership nationwide has plummeted.
There's definitely going to be plenty of people inconvenienced and some people even stranded.
36 million people across the country depend on public transit, but they just aren't riding right now. So revenues are down dramatically. In Washington, D.C., the metro is losing $100 million a month. In New York City, the MTA is facing $16 billion in cuts. Denver's RTD is facing a $166 million shortfall by year's end. San Francisco's light rail is $33 million in the hole.
Now it's really time for our political leaders to step up and provide the funding that transit needs.
Another big concern is that if public transit services are cut now, they won't be there for riders when the pandemic is over.
A lot of governors are thinking about a reopening strategy for the spring and summer of next year, and they need to make sure that transit is there to be a critical part of that reopening strategy.
Something else is also happening. Demand for used cars is booming, with prices rising more than 9%. The concern is that people will permanently ditch public transit after the pandemic, only making congestion issues worse. There are also housing implications to all of this. For years, cities and towns across the country have been incentivizing developers to build apartment and housing complexes near transit hubs. But with more Americans working from home, the need for that kind of housing has basically disappeared.
It's not like people aren't choosing to take transit on their trips. They're not taking trips.
Beth Osborne is with Transportation for America. She's worried that if cities and states cut public services, people won't be able to get back to work.
I think we have to ask ourselves, do we want our economy to function or not? It's as simple as that. Either we want economic recovery and we want a strong economy, or we don't.
Why keeping the country moving on the other side of this pandemic is so important.
This may be the spotlight that forces us to make the changes we should have made before anyway.
In Boston, I'm Chris Conte.